You're watching the Midland At-Large City Council and Midland City Council District 1 debates. Sponsored by Lissa Noel Wagner, Diamondback Energy, and Permian Resources.
Good evening, and welcome to Basin PBS, where we're coming to you live from the Anwar Family Studio. I'm Pat Canty, Board President of Basin PBS, and on behalf of the board, thank you for joining us tonight. We're honored to host the Midland City Council at-large and the Midland City Council District 1 debates. It's important to note that there are 2 seats available for at-large. Now, Basin PBS is known for its quality programming, where we provide not only education, but entertainment as well. Tonight's program is a culmination of our mission to educate and to inform. This program is made possible by our members and generously sponsored by Lissa Noel Wagner, Diamondback Energy, and Permian Resources. We're thrilled to have a small studio audience with us and have all of you, our Basin PBS supporters, watching at home on channels 13 or 36 or live on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Plus, we're also running live on KWWT My Network 30 TV. Joining me at the moderator's desk are Becky Ferguson and Mary Kate Hamilton with First Alert 7.
Thank you very much, Pat. The format of tonight's show will consist of 2 segments. The first segment will be approximately 57 minutes in length as we have 4 candidates, and segment 2 will be approximately 27 minutes in length. We will have a 2-minute break to switch out candidates for the next segment. Our questions were developed by our team of moderators, a small representation from the community, and our Facebook page, where our community will be given the opportunity to submit questions. Due to the time constraint, we will only read the rules once, but all candidates have received the rules in advance and are familiar with tonight's format.
The debate will begin with each candidate in order of how they are listed on the ballot, with 2 minutes for their opening remarks. After these opening remarks, the moderators shall pose a series of general questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. In the event a candidate's answer to a question invokes the name or policy position of one or more of the opponents, the moderators, at our sole discretion, can give the referenced candidate 30 seconds to respond. It's important to note an individual candidate may also be asked a direct question because of a statement or policy position he or she has made during the campaign. The candidate will then have 1 minute to answer the direct question. The 30-second rebuttal rules still apply. At the conclusion of the questions, each candidate will be given 1 minute for their closing statements. You do not have to use all of the time you are given, but we encourage you to do so, as this is your time to let your constituents know your stance on policies. This will be a live broadcast, so flash photography, making loud noises, or other disruptive actions or comments are not permitted. Now let's get started and meet our candidates for Midland at-large. John Burkholder, Eric Davidson, Robin Poole, and Rance Norton. We will now begin with opening statements, and I would like to remind the candidates that each of you have 2 minutes. And we're going to begin with you, Mr. Burkholder.
Thank you for having us tonight. My name is John Burkholder, and I'm a native West Texan and longtime Midlander, and I want to put my God-given talents and abilities to use for the city of Midland. My family and I are grateful for the opportunities that we've received in Midland, and I want to create an environment where other people can realize those opportunities as well. My wife and I, we love this community. We serve and we give back. I currently teach at our church, boys' 4th grade Sunday school. I'm on our planning and zoning committee. I'm a fellow Rotarian here in Midland, and also teach Taekwondo in my spare time on a volunteer basis. I've been blessed with 24 years of successful business experience and leadership. I currently serve as the president of Burkholder Holdings LP, which is our family holding, and our land holding. I serve as the director of Ranch Water Resources, which is our water sourcing company. And experience matters, wisdom matters, and knowledge matters. And these are things that are accumulated over time. During those times, I've managed the ups and downs of our local economy. I've managed P&L, profit and loss statements, to make sure that we have a healthy bottom line and make sure that we still stay relevant out in the workplace. I've fostered contracts, negotiations, implemented those, and upheld those contracts. And I've also, anyway, those experiences become extremely relevant when leading a city and providing real-world solutions to real-world problems. I hope that Midland will vote for John Burkholder and allow me to use my experience to help steer Midland in the right direction. Thank you. Again, my name is John Burkholder, and I'm running for City Council at large.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, your opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you for having us here tonight. I am City Councilman Eric Davidson, and when I think of where we are as a city, I'm immediately filled with excitement. I'm running for re-election to the City Council because I care deeply about this city. Every person in Midland needs to feel safe. We need more police officers. We need to make sure that we're fighting to keep our taxes low, that our roads constantly aren't under construction, and that we need to come up with new alternative funding solutions instead of always coming back to the taxpayers for more money. That's simply called good business. As a city and a council, we need to keep partnering with local businesses and continue to bring public-private money into quality of place projects that benefit all Midlanders. But we have to realize that there's still businesses and foundations that don't trust the city. And so we have to make sure that we rebuild those relationships and move forward as one Midland. My wife, Casey, and I moved here in 2017. We've had the opportunity to work and volunteer with nonprofits, sit on boards, be members at our church Redeemer, and we've had the opportunity to foster kids in this community. We have a heart for Midland. This is our home, and I want to continue leading this city into the next chapter. I'm an engineer, hydrogeologist, senior director of my organization, and your current city councilman. I've built a career solving problems, and I've already brought that same approach to the city level. In the 6 months I've been on council, I've helped bring millions of dollars back to the general fund. I've been able to get the city out of a bad 20-year contract obligation and improved a tax rate and a budget that will allow for a larger police force. I'm committed to coming into office and making sure that our tax dollars work smartly for all of us. I am running for re-election because I'm ready to continue getting things done for Midland and would be honored to earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Poole, your opening remarks.
Thank you. And I just want to apologize for my voice moving forward. But I wanted to say thank you to the moderators, to the sponsors, and to Basin PBS for hosting this event. You guys are always amazing to educate the community, and we're all honored to be here this evening. My name is Robin Poole, and it's been my great privilege and honor to serve you as an at-large council member over the last 3 years. As a native of this community, a wife, a mother, and someone who's dedicated over 40 years to this community, I stand before you today with a deep love and commitment to our city, and most importantly to the people who call it home. During my time on council, I prioritize principled leadership, managing tax dollars wisely, and ensuring our hardworking city staff can provide the efficient services we all rely on. When I ran 3 years ago, I promised to represent every citizen, regardless of circumstance or background or their position in life, and I have strived to do just that. I am proud to say that every decision that I make comes from a place of compassion, conviction, and a deep-seated commitment to the people of Midland. As we look towards the future of our great city, I'm humbly asking for your support once again. I would be honored to have your vote come November 5th so we can continue working together to ensure every voice is served and every resident is represented. I'm Robin Poole, running for Midland City Council at large.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Well, good evening. My name is Rance Norton. I'm a native Texan from a middle-class family, and at my core, I'm a servant leader. I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to move here to Midland some time ago. And as soon as I moved here to Midland, I realized this is home for me. I've held multiple management and executive positions all the way from nuclear power to oilfield services. I know business, I know people, and I know how to get things done. I'm running to improve the lives of all Midlanders, not just a select few. And that includes road and infrastructure improvement, utilizing resources that we've been blessed with here in the Permian Basin, and economic development projects to help sustain and create jobs. I am a fiscal conservative. You know, fiscal conservatism goes all the way back to Aristotle, and it's based off a few principles of limited government and private sector initiatives, fiscal responsibility, lower taxes, priority of essential functions, and free market principles. I am an advocate for private sector projects here in Midland. We need to realize that Midland politics is not like national politics. Not everyone wants something in return for the money that they invest in Midland. People and businesses love Midland. They love to invest in Midland. They want to see Midland grow. We need to let our tax dollars focus on essential functions like a true fiscal conservative. Throughout the night, I plan to show to you that I am the candidate of and for the people of Midland. I look forward to engaging as we look for ways to make Midland the best city for generations and generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norton.
Thank you to all of you. And without further ado, let's get into the questions. The Midland Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund has a $120 million deficit. On top of the deficit, Midland firefighters are already among the lowest paid fire department in comparable cities. Bonds, benefits cuts, and an increased retirement age have all been proposed without any agreed upon solution. And now MFD runs the risk of losing valued personnel. What do you believe is the best concrete way to finally solve this problem? And Mr. Burkholder, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Well, I do want to say that I'm very proud to be the only candidate that is actually supported by our firefighters here in Midland. And it's in their best interest to have the best person in City Council that can make these hard decisions, can negotiate contracts, and come to a conclusion. I hope that for the sake of Midland, that we aren't talking about this next year whenever whoever gets elected is going to be taking over the spot. But ultimately, they want to make sure and have the right person in place. I think that we need to take a conservative approach to this. First thing, starting off with balancing budgets to make sure that we can tie up any free money that there may possibly be. And then look at cash flow management strategies to make sure that we're not bleeding money in certain places that we could potentially use for that. But ultimately, dipping into our reserves to soften the blow of any impact that may take place in order to correct this fund. But we owe it to the sake of the firefighters to make sure that we take care of this and take care of it immediately. These are their retirements that we're talking about, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable that we're doing something about it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. So the facts of the matter are that the city is working on a solution. Myself, the mayor, and Councilwoman Poole, who's standing next to me, are on the subcommittee that is working up a full comprehensive solution. We've been sitting with the firefighters for multiple months. We've been going over their needs when it comes to their retirement fund and also some of their wants to address that pay gap that you discussed and their total compensation and how we really handle their firehouses. I can't go into all the details because we're still negotiating back and forth, but what I will say is we did provide them a full comprehensive solution last month. This addressed all the needs that we talked about for 2 months. It addressed some of their wants, and most importantly, we came to a solution where we wouldn't have to go to the taxpayers and ask for more money. We could handle this in-house, take care of all the needs, and get this done before the end of the year. But it is October. It has been last month since we sent it, and we have still not heard word back.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Poole.
Thank you. As Councilman Davidson said, I sit on the subcommittee that is currently working with the Firefighter Fund leadership to really work through a solution, a comprehensive one. We were trying to kind of piecemeal things, I think, this time last year, and council said we really want a comprehensive plan. We want to get all the numbers in, we want to get the facts and figures, get the actuarial review done so that we actually know what we're looking at, and that's exactly what we've done. We've had countless meetings. We've gone to Austin. We've met with the state PRB board. There's just been a whole lot of conversation and work that's gone into this, and not just on our part, but on the firefighter side as well. This is their retirement. This is their livelihood. It's the future of their family. And so it's something that we absolutely have to address. This isn't something that we get to continue to just kick down the road. I think that's partially why we've gotten in the position we're in.
Thank you. And Mr. Norton.
Well, Mary Kate, this situation that we have, when you're in business, one thing being key of business is we need to be proactive versus reactive. In this scenario right here, we are in a reactive mode. And when you're in a reactive mode, things can get really messy and you can make really rash decisions. The one thing that I think we need to do, as I've mentioned multiple times, without getting into real specifics, is that each side has had shortcomings from the city and from the firemen. What we need to do is we need to have somebody that is versed in business, versed in contracts, versed in negotiations to sit down and bring both sides to the table, leave our egos at the door, and figure out a true solution to the problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The city of Midland boasts the lowest unemployment rate in the state. It's about 2.8%. While an accomplishment, new businesses like Costco will require thousands of employees. So how will Midland be able to sustainably keep up with this growing economy? Mr. Davidson, we'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a question that really hits close to home as well. And so you mentioned the unemployment rate. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Looking at it from our total economy, we have the fastest growing economy in the United States. Our economy is growing at twice the rate of the Bay Area. We have the highest GDP per capita in this state, and we have a GDP capita that's 3 times larger than Austin. So we have a very large economy. We have an economy that provides a lot of large, well-compensated jobs. And one of the challenges is how do we attract new businesses to come in and be able to find employees here? Well, that's one where we've been doing a really good job of how can we increase the quality of place here in town. The question is not how much can you get people here, but how can you keep them here? And the city has been focused on ensuring that we can keep our young, strong population here and continually attract new people to fill these new jobs.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Poole.
Thank you. Yes, the addition of Costco is very exciting, and I do think that Costco is a really great example of the kind of businesses that we want to bring here. Their pay rate, even for part-time employees, is close to $20 an hour, and they provide benefits for all of their employees as well, and they are really able to offer just a lot of amenities to the younger population that will be seeking employment within that business. And so I think when we have different businesses that are able to cater to that population of the workforce, it really works in our advantage. Another thing that I think that we've really done well, and the MDC has been great in partnership with this with Midland College, is partnering to really develop our workforce. And that's programs within Midland College, but it's also programs that they have started incorporating into the high schools as well.
Mr. Norton.
Well, Pat, I think everybody standing on this stage and people who are for economic growth in Midland always get this question. They get the question of where are we going to find our workers? We live here in the Permian Basin in the oil field, and oil field service is keen. And everybody comes here to work in the oil field. I think quality of place is a big thing. I think bringing in businesses, bringing in opportunities for people where they don't take their money. I've said keep Midland dollars in Midland, where they don't take their money and go somewhere else to have fun or to go somewhere where they can go be entertained. We've got to do things here in Midland to keep people in Midland. One thing that I've been talking to is the veteran community. When I talk to the veteran community, there's a lot of plans that we can have through the U.S. government to where we can entice veterans as soon as they get out of a combat situation to come to Midland and to be put into the workplace. And I think that's something that we should look at, and I would love to look at that whenever I'm on council.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Burkholder.
Thank you. One thing about being a planning and zoning commissioner is that we get to see planning and development from the very beginning. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. One of the things I think that we do, it really starts with the planning department in the city, and it's creating a conducive environment for businesses and builders to come into Midland. By simplifying processes and procedures and shortening time frames and making it to where we don't have builders that are being frustrated as they're trying to build in Midland. In doing that, we can bring in more builders to build more affordable homes, which will essentially create a cheaper home for people to be able to afford and be able to move into the area. And it also creates an atmosphere where businesses can thrive because they want to come here because it's a simplistic process that they can get things started very quickly and without a lot of extra cost. The other thing that we actually did too was we've implemented quite a bit more green space in the building plans for a lot of our local developers. And again, going back to just creating a nice environment that's attractive for people to come here.
Public-private partnerships have been a major talking point and at times a point of contention in the current city council. The city turned down $50 million in private funds for Hogan Park. What is your opinion on the utilization of private dollars on public projects moving forward in Midland? And we'll begin with you, Ms. Poole.
Thank you. I believe that public-private partnerships they can be a big benefit to the community, but it has to make sense. It's not just about the amount of money that we receive. You mentioned Hogan Park. It's not just about the money, it's about the governance piece of it as well. And so when there's a piece of that that's lacking or there's not answers for that, that may not be the best project moving forward. But I think if the project at hand can cover something financially that the city cannot do, yet the city doesn't lose control and citizens continue to be represented by their elected officials, then absolutely we can utilize those.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Well, Becky, great question. The Hogan Park, in my mind, is one of the biggest travesties and tragedies that we have had here in Midland to date. You know, it really has put in a bind and has kind of driven a wedge between the business community and the city of Midland. It's no secret that I'm for economic development and I'm for bringing things to Midland. But I'm also, as I said before, a fiscal conservative of limited government and bringing in more private money to help us be able to use our taxpayer money for our necessary services that we have. You know, as I said earlier in my opening remarks, you know, Midland, people and businesses here in Midland want to invest in Midland because they want to keep people here in Midland and have a good workforce. I think with us, with the green spaces, with parks, with economic development, we can keep people in Midland, keep jobs in Midland, and make Midland happy.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder.
So private-public partnerships can definitely add value to the community. We saw with the Pioneer Water Reclamation Facility that we have a facility that was partially or was paid for through a private-public partnership that has great benefit for securing water for Midland. But one thing we have to understand too is that debt is debt. It's either public sector debt or private sector debt. And so it really boils down to good governance principles. And so we need to ask ourselves, are these things that we truly, really need or really want? Second of all, we need to make sure that we have the right people in place negotiating the contracts. That's where it really boils down to. As Ms. Poole said, that we have to make sure that we're not giving up too much, and we have to understand that both parties are getting something beneficial out of it. But third off, it really needs to go to the citizens of Midland, and again, and relying on them to give us their feedback on if this is something that is truly needed and wanted in the city. So ultimately, if those things are solidified and we're in a good spot, then I think private-public partnerships can definitely have added benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Yes. So the city needs to be good stewards of everyone's tax dollars. We need to foster public-private partnerships in order to build our parks, in order to attract new businesses, and ultimately clean up this city. I spoke about it in my introduction. There's businesses and foundations that are still reeling from the effects of Hogan Park and what our council, and Mrs. Poole was on that council and turned down Hogan Park, did. And we lost a lot of trust. And we are having to rebuild that trust back up in order to attract these new businesses and attract these foundations. We are better whenever we can all collaborate and move forward in one direction as a Permian Basin. We need to do that. We need to see where we can bring in private foundation and private money to beautify our city, to help attract these new quality of place projects. There's a lot of needs in this city that the city has to address with our budget. We have wants, and the only way we can truly address a lot of these wants is through public-private partnerships.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Poole, you do get a chance for a rebuttal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, you know, I do stand behind my vote. Like I said, it was not just a matter of the money at hand, it was a matter of governance. And when you have a public park, you have to make sure that the residents of Midland have access to that park and that they maintain representation through their elected leaders. You know, the WEF is really big into public-private partnerships as a way to usurp government. And I don't think that's something that I'm okay with.
Okay. Thank you very much. You each are running for an at-large seat, and that means you represent the entire city of Midland, not one neighborhood or population group. How dedicated are you to being a voice to all people in Midland, and how have you proven that dedication throughout your campaign? Mr. Norton, we're going to start with you.
Yes, Mayor Kate. As I said in my opening remarks, I'm a servant leader. At my core, I am a servant leader. You know, I grew up with a family that taught me to always take care of people before myself. And one thing in my campaign, what I've done is I don't cater to just one group of town. One thing that I've loved when I first started talking about running for city council, I was excited to be going around and meeting people and hearing what they have to say about their vision for the city of Midland. You know, if elected, I plan to be a voice for all Midlanders, not just a select few. There's some people out there that'll say, you know, you're just going to be for a select few. Well, that's not the case. If that's the case, people really don't know me, because I truly care about people and I truly care about this town, because in my mind, this city is the best city out of any cities in the state of Texas.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burkholder.
Thank you. You know, I didn't grow up in a privileged environment, and I had to work my way up from the bottom to where I am today. And so I feel like I can resonate with people from no matter where they are in Midland, because I've been there and I've done it and I've been through it and I've experienced it. You know, during my time earlier this year, I worked really closely with Miss Shirley Howard, who was a fantastic person and just a gem to our community. Unfortunately, she's not here anymore. But I worked with her a lot. I worked with George Martinez over at Martinez Bakery, trying to figure out ways where we can bring in more vote. And so I've put myself in lots of different places throughout the city to make sure that every voice is being heard, because it's extremely important. No matter where you are in the city of Midland, you should have a voice, and you should have representation that is going to hear your voice and make sure that you're being heard, that they understand you, and that you feel like you're part of Midland.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, that's something that really hits home, because I am an at-large candidate here for the city council. I represent everybody. I represent all Midlanders, not just a specific district. And when I look at how do I make sure that I'm making choices that the entire city wants, I go back to, I serve in a lot of nonprofits. I serve in a lot of aspects where I'm able to spend time in different parts of our community, be around people with different socioeconomical backgrounds, and really hear what they want to see from Midland. And whenever I talk to them, the resounding message is everybody wants a Midland where they can live, work, and stay, where they can have a safe space to send their kids, where they can have recreational activities, where they aren't having to leave town, because not everybody has a GDP that's 3 times Austin. We have needs in this town. We have social needs, and we need to address those and work with foundations, work with charities, and work with churches to make sure that everyone in Midland is taken care of.
And Mrs. Poole?
Thank you. As Eric said, we are representative of the community at large. And so my past campaign, my work on council, my campaign this go around, it's been very important for me to go around to all of the community. I think the people of Midland are truly the heartbeat of who we are. They are who bring the true quality to our community. And so whether it's door knocking with my husband, going from house to house and talking to residents, or whether it's coming to forums to reach out to the community in a larger way, I think it's of utmost importance to make ourselves available to the community, to make sure that we are always transparent with all of the decisions that we make and our ideas for the future, and that we stand by those. And I think that I've done a really great job of standing by what I said I was going to do. And I just hope that the voters in Midland will give me a chance to do that for another 3 years.
Thank you.
We need to take a short station break, but when we come back, we'll continue to hear from the Midland City Council at-large candidates. Welcome back. We're coming to you live from Basin PBS in the Anwar Family Studio with our Midland City Council at-large debate. So let's continue. Our next question deals with the city's international air and spaceport. Just last week, the City of Midland released staggering numbers for the Midland International Air and Spaceport, with passengers exceeding 700,000 in 2024 for the first time ever. What is the status of airport improvements, and is it enough? And if not, what would you suggest to help meet the airport's growing needs? And we'll start with Mr. Burkholder.
So our Midland Air and Spaceport is a gem. So not only is it an airport, but it is a spaceport as well, which we've seen a lot of expansion in that. There has been expansion through the new terminal that is being built at the moment that actually came through planning and zoning here just not too long ago, so they have made space for that. There's also space as land has been purchased to be able to extend out even further. So we will see Delta that will be coming into the Midland-Odessa area and offering direct flights to Austin, which will be nice. So we're seeing a lot of improvements, and as we continue to bring in more of those baggage fees and some of the other landing fees and the things that are generated through the airport, we're going to continue to see it grow. And I'm proud to see it grow, and I'm proud to know that our Midland Airport is self-sufficient. So they actually don't bring in or have to take any money from any of the taxing entities. They're all self-sustaining. So lots of great things coming.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson.
Yes, so up until our last budget year, we were subsidizing the airport. We were actually having to give money back because of their revenue wasn't enough. So whenever you start thinking about the amount of flights that leave month over month here in Midland, the biggest thing that we were missing is we were not being able to charge the airlines right contracts whenever it came to the enplanement fees. And so we were a quarter to a fifth of what the national average is per enplanement. So that comes out to we were missing millions of dollars of revenue. Those millions upon millions are going to be able to get funneled back towards the airport to where it's now a sustainable, independent fund. This is something that has just happened on the city council. It was just approved by this council. That's why this council has been doing such a great job of where can we find creative ways to quit subsidizing the entities and how can we grow? And this is going to allow an airport that we're now going to start being able to drive change and increase the revenue, increase the capacity of the airport and start really changing the way it looks because of the revenue we're bringing in.
Thank you. Mrs. Poole.
Well, this is a topic that I am absolutely passionate about. I serve on the Airport Planning Board as the liaison. We just finished our multi-facilities project, and now we're starting the terminal modernization project to bring a couple more TSA lanes to the airport, so we hopefully get to avoid those long wait times. With 700 passengers flying, $8.2 million in parking revenue, we have a lot to look forward to as far as growth is concerned. And I think the conversations have started about what does that look like? Is that another gate? Is that possibly a parking garage? We just have a whole lot of options, and being able to charge the airlines what other markets are already commanding is going to help us greatly with the revenue. I've also been very instrumental in the revitalization of Midland Air Park with the creation of Fly Into Fall and other improvements for our little general aviation airport in the heart of our community.
Thank you. And Mr. Norton.
Yes, Pat, you said 700, you threw the number of 700,000 passengers out there. I was at the city council. I attended a city council meeting where we were talking about the enplanement fees. And it really just blew my mind, the fact that we were sub $5 for enplanement fees when everybody else was over $5. So if you just look at that and multiply that times 700,000, think about the money that's going to bring in for the airport. Also when we talk about the airport, we also got to talk about the spaceport. The spaceport designation is a great thing. I have been really fired up about this with meeting with Sarah Harris at the MDC and talking about things that are coming down the pike. Out here in Midland, we are so oil field centric. And everybody is talking about how can we diversify our economy. Well, I think one way we can diversify our economy is utilize the spaceport designation that we have and make that part of Midland, with the engineering and the manufacturing technologies that we have out here in Midland, an aerospace hub in West Texas.
Thank you. The Omni Midland Hotel, formerly known as the Hotel Santa Rita Project, was controversial on the city council last year. The city pledged around $10 million to the project through tax rebates and incentives. How can the City Council ensure that this is a worthwhile investment for downtown Midland? And we'll start with you, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. So the goal of Hotel Santa Rita, which is now the Omni, is to really create a transformative project downtown. And so when they started meeting with subcommittees, everybody on that subcommittee picked the Hotel Santa Rita. This goes back to the 3 city council members that are on there, Dan Corrales, John Norman, and other people within that committee all chose this project. And they chose it because it was transformative. It was able to take abandoned properties that were generating no tax revenue, and we're now going to be able to add hotel rooms downtown. We're adding restaurants. We're adding businesses that are going to bring more traffic to Midland and increase our sales tax revenue. And the city is working hard with the Hotel Santa Rita group to make sure that they're hitting all their deadlines and that they're hitting all their goals. The Omni recognized how transformative of a project this was going to be, and they stepped in, and they are now taking over as the flagship. So that should be a huge encouragement that a corporation like the Omni has recognized that there's a need in Midland, and they're going to fill that need.
Thank you. Ms. Poole.
Yes, thank you. So I believe in your question you said $10 million. It's actually $45 million that we're giving to that project, along with another close to $40 million in abatements. And so I was a no vote on that project. And although I think it is a wonderful project and it's going to be great for our community, as a fiscal conservative, I just don't believe that giving that kind of cash is in our best interest. And so I think the free market is a much better director of what should be developing downtown. We had another hotelier that was willing to put in a very nice product, an AC Marriott, in the same location, and did not want anything in return. He just wanted the land that the Western United Life building sat on. And so that's a project that would have really enhanced downtown, and we would not have been out all of that money.
Mr. Norton.
Yes, Becky. When I look at the Hotel Santa Rita Omni project downtown, we're talking about a full-service hotel. This is a way for us in Midland to retain, entertain, and attract people. You know, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to retain headquarters of corporations that are here in Midland. You know, I talked to a bunch of people that come in out of town, from Houston, from Dallas, from Austin, everywhere. And the one complaint that they have about our downtown is the fact that we don't have anywhere to stay, when most of their business that they do is in Midland, Texas. I've talked to companies who are out here, based here in Midland, that do their board meetings somewhere else because we don't have a nice place for them to have it. You know, I believe that the Hotel Santa Rita is a good thing for Midland. And if we look at the comps for other cities and what they have given, if we look at Odessa received, their Marriott received 41% from their Economic Development Corporation. You know, this is a transformative thing for downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder.
I spoke about this at length prior discussions, and I was not for the development as well. And it was primarily due to the immense amount of cash infusion and tax abatements that were tied to it when, as Ms. Poole said, that we had another developer that wanted to build another product that was going to be an excellent product that could have still been transformative for downtown. Now, ultimately, that is passed, and it is our job to support it and see it through and make sure that they succeed and that we're not sabotaging any projects moving forward. It is vital now that it is here to see it succeed, and it's vital that we rely on, like the Chamber of Commerce and some of our other programs and entities that we have to bring in quality venues into the Bush Convention Center to make sure that we fill those up and try to do everything we can to make it succeed and promote it as much as possible.
Thank you.
Midland has a long history and almost historic identity of being a boom and bust town. It's made some residents weary of the massive growth that Midland has seen over the last few years, worried that projects may fail and businesses may sit empty if Midland were to see another bust. What is your message to those people? Mrs. Poole, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that the public that has that conception has a right to be worried. I mean, they've lived here, they've seen the history. I myself weathered booms and busts with a single mom and just saw the toll that really took on not only myself, but my family and friends as well. And so I think people that are are from this community have a right to be worried about that. But what I will say is that our current council is very much focused on the growth that we're seeing in Midland, and we are trying not to be reactive to the growth, but get out ahead of that growth and do it in a responsible way so that we're never at a point where we're left holding the bags should something happen. And so I think that if we're making fiscally responsible decisions with our tax dollars, we can guarantee that we're going to be in a place where the city is still able to provide for the needs of our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Mary Kate, I'm happy you asked that question because I've been asked that question a lot. You know, I'm not a native Midlander. I moved out here 7 years ago. But you can say that where I'm from is in a bust 24/7. So I know how it feels to be in a low economy town and grow up there. You know, I think if we look at things where people talk about, well, people come in here for the work and then they leave as soon as it busts. Well, you know, when COVID happened and negative oil came around, what we're seeing now is the average age of Midlanders around 34 years old and a high concentrations of Midlanders between the ages of 0 and 4 years old. So COVID happened 4 years ago. People are putting their roots in the ground here in Midland. And I think the way that oil companies are now, with being conservative at the way we look at things, I think Midland, and that's why we need to invest in Midland and keep people here, because Midland realizes, the people in Midland realize Midland values and how it's the people that makes the difference.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder.
You know, I grew up in a time in Midland to where the oil field was not booming, and I grew up seeing what that was like, and I also got to grow up and see what it was like once it was booming. And so there is a reason why we have old dilapidated buildings downtown that are going to have to be torn down, or we're going to have to do some type of reclamation on those. And there's a reason that we hold a higher dollar reserve amount in our city's reserve than other cities of comparable size, because these are cycles that we go through. Now, with that being said, we also don't want to hinder free market growth here. So if we are providing an atmosphere, like I talked about earlier, through proper planning and zoning and creating a conducive environment for business, then we'll let free market do its thing. And they are going to be the ones that ultimately will say, hey, yes, we want to go to Midland, or we don't go to Midland. And so we just need to provide that environment for them and let free market have its way.
Thank you. And Mr. Davidson.
Thanks, Becky. So it was mentioned earlier, but we had some great leaders throughout the boom and bust cycles. Whenever we start looking into the 80s and 90s, that were able to hold this city together and keep Midland going. And we're now standing on the backs of everything that they put in place to ensure that we are a strong city because of the decisions that they made during those very hard times. I'm originally not from Midland. My grandpa lived out here and then moved away during one of the cycles. But when I came to Midland, this was a completely different city than people told me about. This is a Midland that's passionate, that has a level of energy. You know, the average age is 32, 33. The largest age group is 0 to 9. There's a lot of young families having a lot of young kids, and they want to stay here. They're putting down their roots here, and they're ready to invest back into this city and make sure that we can carry the torch for that next generation and turn this into the city that it needs to be.
Midland's growth has led to a shortage of affordable housing. How would you address housing affordability and work with developers to encourage the construction of more housing options for all income levels? And with that, we'll start with you, Mr. Norton.
Well, thanks so much, Pat. You know, the housing issues that we have just across our nation, and especially with inflation issues that are going on with things that are happening throughout the economy. I mean, it's hard for us as a city council to sit here and be able to control housing costs in Midland. One way that we can do that is to help lower taxes and to help look at our budget and help find ways to lower the taxpayer burden that we have here in Midland. You know, also, whenever we talk to builders, you know, when you talk to the Beaton Bows and the D.R. Hortons and the people that are coming out here and building housing developments, also talk to them about, why don't we build some parks inside these housing developments? Why don't we build, you know, some walking paths inside these housing developments? You know, so that can bring people in here, although they'll pay a premium on a house, they'll at least have something to do when they're living in that neighborhood.
Mr. Burkholder.
You know, I hate to sound like a broken record, but again, it all starts back with planning and zoning. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. We have actually worked with home builders like Beaton Bow and created what we call PD districts, planned development districts, to allow a wide array of different types of builds. So generally, instead of one particular type of house like what we would call SF3, we give them the ability to put multifamily homes, SF3s, whatever they feel is necessary, and that allows them to build lot sizes that allow for more affordable homes. The other thing is that we have implemented a lot of green spaces in those developments to make sure that not only are we providing affordable homes, but we're providing an area where people want to move because it actually looks nice. The other thing is, too, is that we need to work with our taxing agencies like the Central Appraisal District to make sure that we're evaluating home prices and not taxing people out of their homes as we continue to see these property values rise.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes, so we were once known as a city that wasn't pro-development, that was not easy to work with. And the city council, the new city manager, made aggressive strides to make sure that we're going to start cutting out the red tape. So whenever you look at affordability of houses, being able to streamline the permitting process, being able to streamline the process to where they can create a master plan, and this is being driven at the city management level and at the city council level. So this is something that we have been addressing and will continue to address because we need more homes. Beaton Bow is about to build a new 1,300 home development. And so when we really start thinking about affordability, it's not only the affordability of the homes, but making sure that Beaton Bow is going to be part of the process to get the infrastructure out to them, that they're going to have a seat at the table when it comes to building some of these roads that are going to be going through their neighborhood, because the city can't continue to constantly look to expand. We have to put money back, and we have to be willing to reinvest back to maintain our entire infrastructure and city.
Thank you. Ms. Poole.
Thank you. I think priority number one is keeping property taxes low so that people can afford their homes and afford to keep their homes. Outside of that, I absolutely think cutting the red tape for development is where it's at. And as Councilman Davidson said, you know, our city manager and Elizabeth Triggs, who is an absolute rock star, have really revolutionized our permitting process and just working with developers on how to get those houses up and running for people quickly. We've also been starting to have conversations with developers about public improvement districts and things like that that will really help those developers out so that they can provide some of these amenities that that residents are looking for in their housing communities. I also think it's important not to forget about our local developers, and we've had conversations here recently with them about how do we bring them back to the table and get them in the mix as well.
Thank you. With Midland's growth, traffic congestion has also become a bigger issue. What are your ideas for improving traffic flow and addressing public transportation needs in the city? And we'll start with you, Mr. Burkholder.
Thank you. It really, again, go back into the planning side of things. Traffic studies are an absolute must as we're continuing to see growth to keep there from being congestion in some of these areas. As Councilman Poole talked about, Elizabeth Triggs and our city manager have been working diligently with improving some of these processes when it comes to the development phase, and we're seeing a lot of improvements and more forward thinking when it comes to developing our roads and some of our new home divisions and business parks. So the other part of that is working with our taxing entities like DOT and county and making sure that we're having interlocal agreements to where we can work together to make sure that things are getting done quickly, that there's good communication, and we're not causing more traffic jams and issues because the communication piece is not there and you have multiple entities trying to work on roads at the exact same time.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes, we need to fix our roads. We are taking too long, and we've got to do better. We have to own that. We have to recognize that we're in a position that we are not hitting deadlines, and we need to start putting plans in place to make sure that we're making this a safe and secure city. If we're having constant construction around this town, it struggles to have emergency responders be able to go places. It makes it almost impossible to commute to different areas. So that's where putting together a strategic plan, working with all the different entities that here, with MPO, with the county, with TxDOT. As I mentioned before, we're better when we can create a plan and move together in the same direction. And we can do that with roads and with what we're doing with the new developers on making sure that they're spending some of their capital within their neighborhood. We can concentrate on those main arteries that are going to connect to our greatest highways.
Mrs. Poole?
Yes, thank you. I really think it's a holistic approach that we have to look at because, of course, the planning of our roads and the maintenance of our roads is a big issue in making sure that we streamline those projects. But another part of that is the public safety side as well. And so this council has enacted Vision Zero, which is our efforts to really work with the county and other leadership in the community to bring traffic fatalities down to zero. In conjunction with that, we've also had the PD that has rolled out the Safe Passageway Initiative. And we're really starting to get out there and enforce the traffic laws and enforce that drivers have to follow the law. And if we are enforcing those, it's just going to kind of have a trickle-down effect. I think last year I can't remember exactly the number, but from June until now, we have served over 1,200 citations, which bypasses the amount of citations from last year alone. So we're really trying to make a difference there, too.
Thank you. Mr. Norton?
Yes, Becky. You know, when you look at the 2025 goals that the city has with their infrastructure and streets, it's improving the street lighting, designing 6 new signal lights, growing our in-house asphalt and paving program, improving the pothole response time, and increasing focus on our most traveled roads. We're almost finished with the road bond that was passed a few years ago. You've got two things, your last two phases of, Main Street and Garfield. I think a lot of people look and they see how, there's TxDOT roads versus Midland roads. We talk about projects getting started and not finishing and just moving. That's why I suggest if we're going to have another road bond, which will be coming down the pike, that we break that up into little small projects so we can guarantee that the projects are done on time and efficient. When I was in the nuclear power business, I was a project manager professional. And what I did there was I took a project from conception all the way to finishing. And one thing that you can do is really be efficient, and that's what we have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And unfortunately, it is now time for our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for your closing statement. And Mr. Burkholder, we are going to start with you.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and all the Midlanders out there. And so, again, going back, I'm a native West Texan, and I'm a longtime Midlander. I love this city. I have passion for this city, and that's why I'm here. I'm not here for self-benefit. I'm here for Midland, to use my God-given talents and my abilities to make Midland the best place that it can be. We all want to see Midland grow, but we want to do it responsibly. The decisions that we make today will have a long-term effect on the future generations to come. And we want to make sure that those decisions are the best decisions. So when the time comes for us to hand this over to our children, that they have a Midland that is in absolute great shape, and it's an absolute great family, or place to raise a family.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, and thank you all for having us here tonight. Being your city councilman has been a tremendous pleasure of mine. And one of the things, as I've been going throughout this campaign trail, is people keep asking me, Eric, why should we vote to keep you in office? And one of the things I keep telling them is, here's what I have to say. I'm the candidate who reads financial reports for a living. I'm the candidate who actively takes the time to read 100-page documents and contracts and make sure that there's not anything in there that's going to be hurtful or harmful to Midland. I'm not the candidate who gets into office and complains. I'm the candidate that will come, figure out what the issue is, and solve the problem. I specialize in identifying failures and rolling out solutions, and I've brought that same skill set to the city council. I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to get things done for you. I'm honored to be endorsed by former mayors, former city council members, and leaders in this community, and I would be honored to earn your vote.
Thank you. Mrs. Poole, your closing statement.
Thank you. At the end of the day, each of us has to remember that serving on the Midland City Council is not a one-man show. It's definitely not about what projects we can push through, what money we can spend, and the legacy that we leave. It's about the fact that we are serving the taxpayers. Serving on City Council is about building a stronger community while remaining mindful, wise, and discerning of the economic realities that we face. Margaret Thatcher once said, "There is no such thing as public money. There is only taxpayer money." This quote serves as a reminder that each and every decision we make as a city council has a direct impact on the people we serve. Being a fiscal conservative is not just about balancing a budget, it's about making decisions based on the priorities and the values of our citizens. Along with wise investments, we must continue to uphold responsible governance. I'm Robin Poole, and tonight I'm asking for your vote to send me back to City Council for the next 3 years.
And your closing statement, Mr. Norton.
Well, thank you. Opportunity. You know, we all have the opportunity to move Midland forward. Moving Midland forward through private investments and using our tax dollars for essential functions as true fiscal conservatives. You know, people want the opportunity to further develop Midland for years to come. They want the opportunity to have a thriving economy that generates even more tax revenue. And this gives us the opportunity for future generations to call Midland home for years and years to come. You know, this election cycle is all about opportunity. We have the opportunity to enact change in Midland for years to come. So tonight, I would like and I want the opportunity to be your city councilman at large, because I would not be standing here today if it wasn't for the opportunities that Midland, Texas has given me.
We need to take a short station break. I'd love to thank the Midland at-large city council candidates for participating in tonight's debate. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll hear from our Midland City Council District 1 candidates.
Welcome back. We are coming to you live from Basin PBS in the Anwar Family Studio. I'd like to remind our candidates that the rules, as mentioned at the beginning of our program, still apply. We will now meet our Midland City Council District 1 candidates. Mrs. Heather Bredemus.
Good evening.
And Mr. Brian Stubbs.
Hello and good evening.
We will now begin with opening statements. I'd like to remind the candidates that each of you will have 2 minutes. And Mrs. Bredemus, we'll start with you.
Thank you, and thank you to the Basin PBS for hosting this debate tonight. My name is Heather Bredemus, and I'm running for Midland City Council District 1. I'm proud to have been born and raised here in Midland. It's where I met and married my high school sweetheart. Together, we share 4 beautiful children, and we served as foster parents with High Sky Children's Ranch. I'm a graphic designer. I worked for my family's printing company, which has been in business locally for 30 years. My passion is advocating for our community, whether it be for foster and adoptive families, supporting healthcare workers, or as a rape victim advocate. I strive to find ways to make a difference. I'm running because I want to make Midland the best place for everyone to live, work, and raise a family. My top priorities will be public safety, getting the police force fully staffed, and fixing the firefighters' pension, supporting our first responders. I want to fix roads more efficiently and strategically plan for growth, especially in District 1. I am fiscally conservative. I will ensure that our tax dollars are being used for essential city services to benefit all Midlanders. My name is Heather Bredimus, and I would love to earn your vote.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Stubbs, your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, PBS, and everyone watching for this opportunity. I've lived in Midland for over 10 years. I am an engineer with over 25 years of experience of solving difficult problems. I am pro-business, pro-Midland, and pro-conservative values. I've built a business here, I've raised a family, and I've been involved in many nonprofits and our church. Midland and the people that live here are amazing, and I have grown to love everything about this city. The growth and prosperity Midland has seen the last decade has not been shared by all. I am running for City Council to be the advocate for District 1 and ensure Midland's rich economy is shared by everyone. District 1 is growing fast. Over 40% of new building permits are in our district for the entire town of Midland. But the city's support is slow to keep up with this rapid growth. District 1 needs better roads, water, and sewer systems to handle this rapid growth. And there is a lot of work that needs to happen. We must have a long-term plan of how we're going to ensure the growth in the North Midland the city is not the reason that it's slowing down. We need a plan for how we best expand roads to the north to better serve all of Midland and ensure our roads are safe and efficient. We then need to ensure we execute on that plan and to conserve taxpayer dollars. As your city councilman, I will bring West Texas and conservative values to the city council. As a business owner, I already know how to keep costs low, solve problems, make tough decisions, and stay level-headed in difficult situations. Simply put, I love Midland. This is a great city, and I want to help our city focus on the basics: safe streets, strong infrastructure, and making sure growth benefits everyone. I will be a strong voice of reason for the District 1, and I would be honored to have your vote on November 5th.
So I'd like to drill down more. You mentioned in your opening statement about the growth in North and Northeast Midland. And I'd like to talk more about that. Obviously, it's growing very quickly. How can you ensure that through your voice on the council, your district will be heard? And we'll start with you, Ms. Bredimus.
Well, I was born and raised here in Midland. I know the city like the back of my hand, and I know my district very well. But more importantly, ever since I filed, I've been knocking on doors and talking to residents in my district every single day. I know what their needs are. They've told me, and I listen to them. I want to be an advocate for what their needs are. They have told me that they want the roads fixed more efficiently. I hear that all around Midland, but especially in our district. And they want proper infrastructure. They need roads to go, Todd and Fairgrounds roads to go north past the loop. We especially saw that when TxDOT ripped up Big Spring when school started, and that was a problem for everyone from A Street all the way to Big Spring and to Lamesa Road. So we need to be more efficient about that. We need to plan strategically for growth. We need a grocery store out there, more restaurants and retail, and I'm going to be an advocate for what my constituents are asking me to do.
Thank you. Mr. Stubbs.
Thank you. The voice of District 1 is really something that needs to be heard more from the city. Actually, in the strategic plan that Midland put together, District 1 is really not mentioned very often. We have to solve what's going on 349 right now. The construction, especially oil field traffic on that road, is just not what it was built for. The growth of both the city and the oil field in that area is causing a lot of problems on those streets. We've added some stoplights, but it's really just not enough, and it's a little bit behind, and we need to get in front of that problem sooner than later. Those people that live out in the very far east side of the District 1 need services. We need fire stations that are closer. We need not just grocery stores, but commercial. We need restaurants. We need things like that people want to go to and don't have to get on the loop and cause more traffic. We have to have that voice in District 1, and I'm willing to do that. We also need to make sure that we really think about having sewers and curbs at all of our streets. There's actually communities in our district that don't have sewer connections, and we need to make sure that happens.
Thank you. How would you balance the rights of property owners with the rights of neighbors when a property owner decides to build something on his or her property that the neighbors don't like? And we'll start with you, Mr. Stubbs.
It's a very good question. That really is the role of a city in city government. City government is there to make a better city for all. If I want to build a gigantic garage on my property, it is going to affect my neighbors. And we need to come together as neighbors and figure out how to correct that. Our city is growing very well in our code enforcement and that department. We're adding code enforcement officers, which is very, very helpful in making sure the city is good for all. Just because you own your property, it doesn't always mean you get to do whatever you want. You have to take in consideration the people around you. You have neighbors, and one of the things I love about Midland is that we still base a lot of our decisions on what our neighbors need. That is what I want to bring to Midland. We need to sit down and talk about this stuff and make sure we're doing what's right for everybody and make sure we're growing in a way that benefits all.
Mrs. Bredimus.
So we've seen this recently with the new YMCA being built, with Twin Peaks that wanted to take over the old on the border. And most recently in Woodland Park, as I was block walking, I had some residents say, "What is that sign over there that the city put up?" They couldn't read it. They are not being properly informed about what is being built. And also, they don't know that it's their responsibility to reach out to the city, to their representatives, and let them know, we don't want this here. And also that they have to get a big group together. It's not enough just to be one person. So it would be my responsibility, I think it's a responsibility of all city council members and all elected officials, to make sure that you are getting that information out there in multiple ways, not just with the sign with fine small print. You need to send letters out. You need to put it out on your social media, not just on the city's website. It is my job to communicate with residents and let them know what's happening.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that question and on both of your answers. You each mentioned that there needs to be commercial growth in North and Northeast Midland, grocery stores, restaurants. But how can you balance that with the concerns of homeowners or constituents about traffic, noise, et cetera? Mrs. Bredimus, we'll start with you.
Right, with growth and construction, there's going to be, a lot of noise and disturbance. I think it's a small price to pay. For example, when you are getting those roads that the North 349 area desperately needs, when you get a grocery store out there, I think they will be okay with it as long as we inform them about how long it's going to take and what step in the process that we're at. Just inform the residents about what they can expect and make sure that we're working efficiently to get it done.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stubbs.
Well, one of the things I'm very excited about being on Midland City Council is growth is very difficult. And exactly the question is based on that. When you're growing, there's going to always be conflict. Just because there's change, people don't always see the reason. And growing a small business, growing nonprofits, what you see is you have to communicate. This is a straight up communication problem. Whenever there is a problem in our district, we need to sit down and figure out how we communicate what we're doing, why we're doing it, when it's going to happen, and what the benefit is to everybody. We need to get those people that say, hey, I don't want this, and figure out why they don't want it, and let's work through that. It's by sitting down and talking that we can figure this out. Yes, things like the YMCA. It's hard to have that across the street, but there's a reason for it. Daycare is a critical thing in our city. We have to have good quality daycare centers and seats. We need to talk to that community and say, hey, how can we come together and support this new project on a critical need for our city and how it impacts you, and make sure we can move forward with that.
So what is the current quality of the parks in your district? How important do you believe parks and green spaces are, and how do you propose financing their upkeep? Mr. Stubbs, we'll start with you.
I think the quality of parks in our district they're almost non-existent. There just really aren't that many. If you look at the long-term plan that Midland has for each block that they've got on their website, there is actually no plan for future parks in our district. This is a gigantic problem. Again, we've talked about tonight about low unemployment rate, growth. Midland needs to find a way to retain people that want to stay in Midland. Parks are critical to that process. People, and especially young families that we have in Midland, want to go to parks. We have to make this a priority, especially in the fast-growing district that we're in. I'm for public-private partnerships as long as they're governed and as long as we understand what they're for and how they're going to operate. We need to bring parks into the developments. When developers come and say, hey, we want to build 1,300 homes, which is being proposed right now, we have to say you have to give us space for parks, schools, green space, and recreational areas. That is critical to our growth and getting Midland to be the shining star of West Texas.
Thank you. Mrs. Bredmus.
Parks play a big part in my family. I have 4 kids, and so we go pretty much every day that it's nice weather, which is quite often here in Midland. So we enjoy that, and there actually are very many parks. I learned while I was enrolled in Midland 101 that there are over 50 city parks within Midland. So that's a lot of upkeep, but we don't have very many in the northeast part of Midland. So I would like to see the city develop one out there for that area. And also, one thing to note is that the city allocates $10.8 million per year towards parks. That doesn't go very far with so many parks, but we are adding money from the oil and gas revenues, and that is helping. And I do agree that public-private partnerships would be helpful, like what we're seeing with the new Beale Park, provided that we are being fair with all of the upkeep of other parks around the city.
Thank you. Midland has the lowest unemployment rate in the state. With large commercial retailers coming into town, how can the city meet the needs of these big retailers without small businesses in your district suffering? Ms. Bredimus, we're going to start with you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Absolutely. Midland has the lowest unemployment rate in the state. With large commercial retailers coming into town, how can the city meet the needs of these big retailers without small businesses in your district suffering?
Absolutely. So that's part of the trade-off when the Economic Development Corporation starts to give money and we don't let the free market do its thing and we give an unfair advantage, and we can see how local businesses can lose out because those big corporations are able to offer more because they got taxpayer dollars to offer that. So it is unfair. But what we need to focus on here in Midland is that we struggle with a workforce issue. So we need to make sure that we are providing more housing options, and the city needs to provide infrastructure for those housing options so that more people can move here and want to stay and work here.
Mr. Stubbs?
Yeah, as a small business owner, this is what I talk about every day. We have to attract good quality workforce in our city. Small business owners like myself, we bring a lot to the table that sometimes larger businesses can't. We're family funded, we're family owned. You know, if an employee has a problem, they can walk into my office. And as soon as we start figuring out how to get that type of mentality into our small businesses, they become very competitive. And then you move on to the problem of we just need a better workforce in Midland. Yes, we've had a low unemployment rate for a very long time, and that does cause a lot of problems when it comes to growth. We need to make sure that we're working as a city and as a school district with our colleges and universities to make sure we have programs that are situated for what small businesses need, not just the large businesses. I work with a couple nonprofits that focus on this, and they get small businesses at the table. We have to have that just be as big of a concern as our large companies that are coming in. One of the things I really love, and I love Midland for supporting our downtown, because they're mostly local businesses. We need to keep that structure inside of Midland.
Thank you. As Midland continues to grow, so do the demands on public safety services. What measures would you take to ensure the police, fire department, and emergency services are adequately supported and funded to meet the city's needs? Mr. Stubbs.
Great question. I've had a lot of really good conversations with the police department, the chief, and I've actually done a ride-along, which I strongly suggest anybody go do. But one of the things that kind of disturbs me in our budget this year is we only increased spending at the police department 1.1% this year and 4% last year. We are not really growing the police department in the way that the city is growing. The police department says they have about 33 open positions right now with about a dozen recruits in training. This only gets them to where they are budgeted to. This doesn't actually get them to where the numbers say they should be. We have to fulfill this promise to our police department to get them more help so they can start policing inside of our neighborhoods, not just the busy intersections. The other thing I really want to look at is we have a lot of young recruits that come into our police department that aren't from Midland. We need to find a way to get these young people who are critical to our city partnerships so they can see what Midland is. I really like the idea of partnering these young recruits with businesses or citizens so they can learn Midland from a different way than just the police department.
Thank you. Mrs. Bredemis?
Public safety is my top priority. 2 years ago, someone broke into our home, and unfortunately, no one was able to respond because the police force is so understaffed. I also went on a ride-along with the same police officer, and I was able to see that they are so understaffed. There was an opportunity when we were supposed to pull over someone, but the officer said, we have to really consider, is this worth it? Because that means that it's taking us off of the street and we won't be able to respond to something else more important. Sure enough, by the end of the night, I saw on his monitor that there was a home alarm going off and there were no police able to respond. It is crucially important that we fully staff the police department. I've spoken with the city manager about this, and as a city council member, that is the most important thing that I could do, is make sure that he knows this is my top priority. I've also spoken with the interim police chief, and I think that he's going to do a great job. We've needed a change in leadership for a long time, and I think he knows that this is my priority.
Thank you.
So any city council has its own dynamic. You know, different members on a council have different levels of expertise or different passions or different priorities. So what, if anything, in your opinion, is missing from the current city council, and how would you fill that role? And for that, we'll start with you, Ms. Bredemis.
Well, like I said, public safety is number one. I think what is missing right now is that the majority of city council is focusing on wants before our needs. That's what I'm going to be bringing to the table. The other thing is we haven't been strategically planning for growth. You look at planning and zoning and the city, and when new businesses come into town, they're not even referencing the old master plan that we had. We have to come up with a new strategic master plan, a comprehensive master plan, and that takes about 2 years to develop. So that would be the first thing that I would do as soon as I get on city council.
Thank you. Mr. Stubbs.
Thank you. The first one is just focus on District 1. District 1 is not mentioned in the strategic plan right now, but it is the fastest growing area in Midland. We've got to get a good voice, a strong voice, which I'm willing to do, to stand up for District 1 and say we need to focus on what's going on the north side of Midland. The other one is just simple focus on growth. Growth is difficult. There is always a lot of decisions to make. You've got to balance tight resources. You've got to balance timelines. You've got to balance different wants from different people. We've got to have somebody focused on growth in Midland. We have low unemployment because we have the resources to grow a city. I think we have the backings of our great citizens and our companies to make Midland something really special in West Texas. We are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but that doesn't mean that we can't be the middle of that and be a great city. We have to have somebody focused on growth and who's willing to dive in and make those tough decisions and work through those hard problems of what it means to really grow a city the way it needs to grow.
One of the reasons that we're having so much growth is the birth rate. The population is getting younger. The birth rate continues to rise. There's a lack of affordable childcare, which you mentioned just a moment ago. What can the city council do to try to increase childcare options for young working families? We'll start with you, Mr. Stubbs.
Again, in some nonprofits I do, this is something that comes up often. And even some of my employees really struggle just finding daycare so they can go to work. This is a big problem in Midland. And again, this is one of those things is as you grow, you're going to find things that we just don't have enough of. The resources are tight. The city really, in my mind, needs to have somebody dedicated to child care. We need to have somebody that reaches out in the city and goes to MISD, goes to the Midland College, goes to daycares. How do we get more daycares, more quality daycares, which is also very, very important. Number doesn't really matter if they're not quality. And having somebody in the city actually reach out and start using funds, there's state funds that are available that can help promote this. There's state funding and state training that we can send people to make sure those are quality seats and quality spots for all of our children. And especially in District 1, the YMCA is kind of the only daycare in our district. We need to focus on getting this daycare spots closer to homes so they're more convenient for all of our people.
Ms. Bredemis.
So as a mom of 4, this is something that I have struggled with for many years. My oldest kids are 15 now, but also as a foster parent, whenever you get a new placement in, you have to find a daycare that day, and that is impossible. With the help of CPS and some friends at daycares, I was able to get them in a little quicker than other people, but parents all over Midland are struggling with this. The Midland Development Corporation is able to give money to certain daycares, not certain daycares, daycares that are quality that would benefit all of Midland and help drive economic growth. So that's what I would do, is I would encourage the Midland Development Corporation to partner with some daycares to build more in District 1.
Thank you.
Transparency has been a focus in both of your campaigns. How do you plan to increase communication and transparency with your constituents and get the word out, Mrs. Bredimus?
So communication, I would say, is one of my greatest strengths. I've done it with many nonprofits. That's usually the role they put me in. And it's something that I'm well versed at and I enjoy doing. And I think people have seen that as I've campaigned. I have tried to be as open and honest and transparent as I possibly can and let people know what I stand for and what I believe, and also communicate with them. And that goes not just with social media, but on knocking on those doors. And we can't just do it every 3 years when we're running for re-election. We have to consistently do it. And that's just talking with a wide array of people. And I feel like that would be my greatest strength and what I would bring to City Council.
Mr. Stubbs.
Yes, I think transparency is critical in any organization. Transparency, honestly, just equals trust. And transparency starts with the individual. If you go look at my Facebook, it's open. I'm open book for everybody. If you ever have any question about me, my family, what I do, please ask, because that's where trust starts. And as a city leader, we have to start with trust. Trust takes that transparency. You have to know why we're doing what we're doing, how it impacts you, what it means, and how we can fix it, and how we can come to the same conclusion. But it all boils into trust. You have to trust your leaders, and you have to trust especially your elected officials. And that's what I bring to the City Council. I want to be transparent, ask questions, let's have conversations, let's build trust between the city and all of the citizens, all of our companies, our philanthropy groups, and our nonprofits, so we can start sitting down and really talk about how we do things and get everything on the table before we make a decision.
The City Council's composed of 7 different people. How well do you think you can work with people that you may not always agree with, and what in your life has prepared you to do so? We'll start with you, Mr. Stubbs.
Thank you. Well, again, as a business owner, as an engineer, as nonprofits, even as a father, I don't agree with a lot of the people around me. And I'm going to change that question. I try to and challenge myself to have those hard conversations with people I don't agree with. That's how I grow, that's how I learn, and that's how I understand what other people are coming from and how and what they want in their city, in their environment. Again, owning a small business, this is what we do every day. We have hard conversations. If something isn't working, we sit down and we have a hard conversation. And again, I want to challenge everybody. Sit down and have that conversation with somebody you don't agree with. That way you can learn and you can see a different perspective, and we can all grow and we can all figure out a better solution to move forward. Thank
you. Ms. Bredimus.
Civil discourse is something that is missing from national politics, but it has trickled down into local politics as well. It is so important that as a leader, you are willing to have those difficult conversations with everyone, whether you agree or not. And if you truly feel like your principles are valid, then you will have no problem doing that and doing it with respect. And that's something that has been missing, we've seen from city council members as they've addressed constituents when they come and speak at city council meetings. I will always treat everyone with respect, listen to their concerns, and try to state my points as well, and be open to what kind of compromise we can get to, but always keep civil discourse.
Thank you both very much. It is now time for our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for your closing statement. And Mrs. Bredimus, we will start with you.
Thank you. I love Midland. This is my hometown. It's where I wanted to raise my children. And I want to make this the best place for everyone to live, work, and raise their families. I've served our community my entire life as a foster parent, supporting healthcare workers, as a leader on a multitude of nonprofit boards, as well as my church. As a graduate of Midland 101 and as a member of the Citizens Development and Hotel Motel Tax Advisory Board, I have extensive knowledge of how the city works and how we can make it better. I'm a fiscal conservative and will work to keep taxes low and cut wasteful spending. I will ensure that our tax dollars are being used to provide for the essential city services that our citizens expect and deserve, like police, firefighters, road maintenance, water, and parks. I have the knowledge, skills, and experience to be the best advocate for the citizens of Midland. My name is Heather Bredimus, and I would love to earn your vote.
And Mr. Stubbs.
Thank you. I have a deep passion and love for the city and the people that live here. Midland needs to be the shining star of West Texas. Midland has a wealth of resources in and around our city. The best and most valuable of these are the people that work, play, and live in this city. They deserve a hardworking, experienced, honest, transparent, and conservative-minded leader on the city council, which is what I bring to this election. My experience as an engineer, a business owner, a leader of community organizations, a father, and a husband will all be used to solve the difficult problems facing Midland as one of the fastest growing cities in America. I understand the magnitude of being on the city council of Midland. We fuel the world through our oil and gas industry, and we need to ensure everyone in Midland has the highest quality of life possible. I am up for this challenge and welcome your vote on November 5th in District 1 for Brian Stubbs. Thank you.
And with that, we draw to a close for tonight's debates. I'd like to thank each and every one of you, not only for participating in this event, but everyone who's in the audience and everyone at home who's taken the opportunity to tune in and watch this wonderful event. I'd like to thank all our candidates, like I said, for participating, especially this tonight at our at-large and also our Midland City Council District 1 debates. Please join us on Tuesday for our next debates at 7 p.m. for the Midland ISD District 1 debate, and then the Midland County Commissioners debate will be Precinct 3, and we'll have that debate as well. We urge all registered voters to cast your ballots. Early voting begins on October 21st and will continue until Friday, November 1st. Please check the voting office for polling stations. We would like to thank our sponsors, Alyssa Noel Wagner, Diamondback Energy, and Permian Resources for generously supporting this program. We'd also like to thank the Elizabeth Yeager family and the Anwar family for their continued support of Basin PBS. Programs like this are responsible because of you, our members and viewers. If you aren't a member and would like to become one, please visit basinpbs.org for more details. I'd also like to thank the Basin PBS Board of Directors and our hardworking and dedicated staff and crew here tonight at our program. I'm Pat Canty, and on behalf of Basin PBS and my co-moderators, Becky Ferguson and Mary Kate Hamilton with First Alert 7, thank you and good night.